Hey Addicts, welcome back. We're here with another game review. This time we're going to be talking about Judgment. We did an unboxing for this game a little while ago when it first released on the channel, but now we're here to talk about the full review, give you all the insights. So I'll start off by just saying that this is a game that is set in the same universe as the long-running series by Sega, also with their Yakuza series, but this one is doesn't have like any shared characters, and there's no real like big references or things that you need to understand from the other games that transition to this. It's very much a standalone story, so it's kind of meant as like a door opener for people that are maybe haven't played the series yet, or they just want to test out this type of game. The big thing about this that's been making it, I think, really popular for people in the West, especially here in the US, is that it has dual audio options. So if you're not a fan of somebody, or you're just not a fan of like traditional style where it has the Japanese audio and then English subs, you can play it in a fully acted and audio version of English with the English subs as well. So kind of just negates that factor. It's still a little strange for me because I'm used to listening to Japanese stuff subbed, or reading the subs, but yeah, I think we're gonna get a little bit into what I think of the dub, because I did play it through the dub just to give that opinion here. But we're gonna start with the story. So the story, the premise of it is very different, not very different, but it does have a different beginning, at least, to the other games that they have done. Our main character, Takayuki Yagami, he is a former lawyer turned private eye, and he has some things about in his past that led him not to become or not to continue to be a lawyer, and now he is working as a private eye when he come across some murders that have a connection to his past, or may have a connection to his past, I guess you would say, or maybe remind him of that. And he is set on the path of trying to find out the answers to all those questions that case brings, and he gets to team up with people at his former role of employment, his past co-workers. He also gets to mingle with the crime underbelly to try to figure out what's going on. So that's pretty much all I want to say there. The stories for these games are, I don't really have much to say with them, because just every single time I know that they deliver, and this one's no exception. The story is definitely above average. I love the little spin that they do with this game, because Yagami isn't a full-blown Yakuza. He doesn't have certain connections to the same extent as maybe in the other series, so they really do play heavily on that detective aspect, and you can see that through some of the gameplay options with you tailing suspects. Excuse me. You're doing file work, keeping up on all of the information you have. Then that plays into like answering questions or interrogating people. You also have even like stakeouts and tailing. So yeah, it's a really cool way that they do it. Even at the beginning, it has this almost 1940s detective or like crime noir style, and I just love that they do that. Even with like Yagami, like in his like office, it is very, I don't want to say stereotypical, but it is very like retro detective, like what you would picture probably of that era. And so I just love that they play on that a bit for his character. The other thing though is even though this is kind of like a murder mystery story, there is still a lot of action. Yagami is he's not naive or an imbecile with his fists, so he can get stuff beaten out of people. And he definitely uses his fists more than once, so there is definitely that aspect in there. I would say there's not as much action in this story as the mainline Yakuza series, just because of the different kinds of worlds they touch in and different story they're wanting to go for. But there definitely is some of those really cool fights in there. Another thing that I guess we'll just jump right into is the gameplay elements, which, like I said, the action is very much just like another Yakuza game. It's a very beat 'em up brawler type thing. There's a lot of different like combos, and different styles of fighting that you can use. In this particular one, Yagami has two different types of styles. He has one that's like I think it's called Swan, and the other one's called Tiger. One's for kind of like area of effect, deals with a lot of crowd controlling. The other one's a little bit more one-on-one, maybe can do a little bit more damage. Both of them are pretty much, you can use them in any scenario. It's just that, if you want to switch it up, or if you think one works better in certain instances, then you can definitely do that. There's not much to say too much about the combat system, because it's pretty in line with, I would say, Kiwami 2 and Yakuza 6 that have come out. Well, I can't really say too much about Yakuza 6 because I haven't played it yet, but like especially with like Kiwami 2, that same kind of rhythm and like how it feels is basically the same. There's just a little bit more polishing to this, I would say, a little bit in terms of like how you can move into some of those finishers, the setup for those combos. There is maybe a little bit more extension to the combat system. I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's more in depth. I think it just like widens it up to where you can perform more cooler stuff easier. So like for instance, if you're regularly doing a combo, you would press square, but normally Y is kind of like your finisher move, or you're like into that combo. And in this game, they've extended that to where like you can actually have three, hit triangle 3 times and have it be like an extended or like deal more damage at the end of the combo. So it's just a different way to set that up. Gets I guess a broader range of different kinds of combos that you can do. So I do like how they've cleaned it up a bit. There's definitely some of the stuff with like hotkeys for your items and stuff that they've improved on, just made it a little bit more responsive or smooth. Getting onto that though, there is mini games still. That's a big thing in the Yakuza series, is having mini games, whether it be like karaoke, like playing darts, going to the batting cages. I would say it's not so much of an emphasis here. You can still pertain in some of those. It's not to the same extent. There is some that you don't have access to, but they're still there. So if you want to take part of them, you can. There is some like little in-game rewards that you get for doing stuff like that, as always. I would say the biggest thing about the gameplay outside of like the main combat, just when you're in the world, is the side cases and the friendship aspect. So you can actually make, I think it's around 50 different friends in the city. And once you build up your relationship status or your friendship status with them, you'll actually unlock cases that you can do like little tasks for them, or if they have a problem, they'll come to you. Just kind of like a cool way, like they have like Yagami, since he is like a two-man operation of his detective agency, he can kind of spread the word so he can get more business. And the side cases, I actually like the side cases a lot. In the later Yakuza titles, or just the recent ones I've played, I would say Yakuza 0 definitely has the best side stories, just because how unique they are. And they kind of lost that a little bit when they brought back, or at least when they did like Yakuza 1 and Kiwami 2, or Kiwami 1 and 2. But this one, I think the side cases are a bit more in tune with like Zero, where they do feel very different and they're kind of unique in themselves. So they're very enjoyable, and you can do them through the story or after the story. So it gives you that content after you complete the main story, if you don't want to touch on them while you're in the middle of trying to figure out the mystery of the mole. So that's really cool. The other thing I'll say is food is probably the only other thing worth mentioning in terms of gameplay. And I know that's a little weird, but it's mainly because food in some of the older games, or some of the other games in like the Yakuza series, they sometimes had in ties to your leveling, which I do really like that leveling aspect. Just putting that little shoehorn in there, Sega. But then they also have a huge impact on how you heal. So that is still there. I would say the most interesting twist that they did for this game is Yagami actually is kind of like a food connoisseur, so he'll actually go and do taste tests, or he'll have to like do little mini games for them when he learns a little bit more about the shop owners. So I do like that. It's just something new that you can do if you've already played some of the other Yakuza games. The last thing I'll touch on is the leveling. The leveling is... It's not tied to food, like I mentioned. It very much is like a standard generic game. You know, you beat up villains, or you complete side missions, or you go through the main story, and it'll give you this currency, and you can use that to level up or unlock new abilities. Very cut and dry. In this game, it is a little grindy. You can't just go around and do like 1 or 2 missions and then you're like, oh, I have enough for, like 5 upgrades. Well, you can in terms of like upgrades that don't necessarily matter, but like combat upgrades, you're going to have to spend a while doing stuff, or go a long period of time, going through mission after mission. The missions do give you, I think, a decent amount of XP, but if you're somebody like me that likes to get sidetracked or do a lot of the side stuff before you get to the main story, you're going to be doing that a while before you can actually unlock a lot of stuff. So that's a little bit of a gripe, but overall I'd say, it's tried and true of gaming. It's not necessarily broken. It's not necessarily the best way, I think, Sega has handled the different types of how you level in games in like this series or beyond it, but it's still pretty simple and to the point. So I mean, as long as it's not too confusing, that's all I can really say about it. It's divided into, I think, 3 different forms, or 3 different categories. It's like your detective and like personal skills or friend skills. Then you have like all combat, and then you have your like core abilities. So like your health and your damage and stuff like that. I guess I did forget about 2 big gameplay aspects, which I completely forgot about until just now. So I'll backtrack just a second. I can't believe I forgot about these. So the other 2 big things is they have a VR game that you can play, and it's kind of the same thing as just going around the street and beating up people, except there's a dice roll aspect, and you get a little bit better rewards. So I guess that's where you could get a little bit more XP and stuff like that there. Those are actually really fun. They do cost a certain amount of currency, so I did see like on the store you can pay real money to get more passes, but it's not necessary. I just played the game and I had plenty in my inventory to play however much I wanted, so I don't think there's any predatory thing to mention there, or annoying loot box or anything like that. Nothing like that. They do a really good job of being really good to their fans. The only other thing I forgot about is there's this quick starter like fundraising campaign thing that you can do to unlock new abilities, or some of them are like quests tied, like side quests. So that's the only other big thing I'll mention. With that being said, I'm going to get into my verdict. So the story, absolutely love it. These new characters, I really am glad to see at the time of this recording that Sega has been really impressed with the sales it's done in the West. So hopefully we'll get to see more of these characters, because I thought they did a really good job with not only Yagami, but with some of the new players on the table that they can touch back on in like the Yakuza series, or like a crossover, or just more installments of Judgment. The dub version is something that I actually did enjoy. It was nice to take a break and not have to constantly read everything in the cutscenes. I could just pay attention to the action. I still found myself reading the subs that came across the screen every once in a while when they were speaking in English. But overall, I was really impressed. I'm not somebody that really likes dub, especially if I watch anime or something like that. I always watch it subbed. But the main cast of characters, I think they did a really good job with their English cast. And, you still have some of that with some side characters, the little, Thug 1, Thug 2. They're going to sound kind of cheesy sometimes, Even in the main story, I don't know if it's necessarily like the dialogue sometimes seems a little off when you have like an English actor in this setting, or if it's just maybe the actor's delivery in that one particular instance. But some of those kind of feel off. Maybe that's just because I'm more of like a sub purist, but you know, for it to impress me this much, even when I don't like dub typically, hats off to them. I thought they did a really good job, and I actually don't know if I could play the Japanese version and think that that's Yagami to me now. But I always know that the Japanese version is really good, especially with the main Yakuza series. I was like, oh, some of my best characters in gaming, for sure. But anyway, guys, my rating for this is a high tier, gotta have it. I love this game a lot. I think having the detective aspect, you know, brings a kind of a new, fresh take in not only you know, the series or like the world that Sega has built around Yakuza, but I think it's a really cool thing in games too, because you know, sometimes you see a detective game, but you know, they're I don't know, they go a little bit too heavy in that detective realm. Like maybe it's a very slow you know, pace where it's like more like a walking simulator or you know, something along those lines. So it was really cool to see like a mystery story told in an action game. So you know, I really liked it. And there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Drones are even flying around, you know, doing races and stuff, which, sorry, you know, there's only so much I can deal in like a short video, but that's another thing that, you know, you can look into to do when you are playing this game, which I definitely think you should pick up this game. If you've never played a Yakuza game, don't even worry about it. You know, this is a great way to digest the game in a way maybe you're more preferable for, and seeing, you know, if you would like something more along these lines. I definitely don't think you have to be, you know, into like Japanese or like foreign made stuff to play this game. I think it's, you know, definitely on par with stuff we make here in the States. So, you know, if you have like that stigma, I would say just go and try it, you know, because I think you'll be surprised if you have that mindset. So anyway, guys, that'll conclude this video, and we'll be sure to be back for some more reviews very soon. We're just operating very slowly at the moment. But anyway, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.